Johnny Carson was an icon of American television. From October 1st, 1962 to May 22nd, 1992, The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson redefined late-night TV and became a staple of American culture. His sharp wit, effortless charm, and perfect comedic timing made him a beloved figure across the nation, and his show set the gold standard for all talk shows that followed. But what about the side of Johnny Carson that never made it to TV? The side that the cameras didn't capture? Today, we're going to take a closer look at Johnny Carson's real life. The one that didn't involve perfectly timed jokes or dazzling interviews. We'll delve into the controversies, the broken relationships, the behind-the-scenes tension, and the tragic aspects of his personal life that paint a very different picture from the one America saw every night. Stick around, because this journey into Johnny Carson's off-screen life will definitely surprise you. Johnny Carson, the man behind the legend. For 30 years, Johnny Carson was the face of late-night television. He captivated audiences with his dry humor, sharp observations, and impeccable hosting skills. But the man behind that affable on-screen persona was far from the light-hearted figure that millions tuned in to see each night. Johnny's on-screen success was complemented by numerous accolades, including 6 Primetime Emmys, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and a Kennedy Center honor. Yet behind the spotlight, Carson struggled with personal demons that affected nearly every aspect of his private life, from his relationships with his children to his battles with addiction. Let's begin by exploring how these hidden struggles affected his relationships, particularly with those closest to him. A tale of troubled marriages. Johnny Carson's love life was far from the fairy tale romance that many would expect from a beloved TV star. In fact, it was a tale of heartbreak, betrayal, and public scandals. Carson married 4 times, and each marriage ended in disaster. His first marriage to Jody Wolcott began in 1949, and while it seemed promising, it eventually unraveled due to Johnny's infidelity and drinking. Their marriage ended in 1963 after more than a decade of conflict and mistrust. Carson's second marriage to Joanne Copeland was even more turbulent. The couple tied the knot in 1963, and their marriage was marked by frequent fights, infidelity on both sides, and Johnny's increasingly problematic drinking. Reports suggest that Joanne had an affair with sports broadcaster Frank Gifford, which led Johnny to spiral into a fit of rage. He reportedly broke into her secret apartment to gather evidence of her infidelity, and this episode left a deep mark on him, deepening his distrust of those closest to him. His third marriage to Joanna Holland followed a similar pattern. After a decade together, the couple divorced in 1983, with Joanna later revealing the challenges of living with Johnny's unpredictable temper and heavy drinking. By the time Johnny married his 4th wife, Alexis Moss, in 1987, he was an older and more subdued version of himself. Yet even then, the darker side of Johnny Carson was never far from the surface. During their honeymoon in Italy, Johnny publicly berated Alexis, warning her that if she displeased him again, their marriage wouldn't last. Though they remained together until his death, these incidents revealed the troubled and controlling side of Johnny's personality that was rarely visible to the public. A difficult relationship with his children. Johnny Carson's career as a talk show host demanded a lot of his time, and sadly, it often came at the expense of his relationships with his children. Carson had 3 sons with his first wife, Jody Wolcott: Christopher, Corey, and Richard. As Johnny's fame grew, his relationship with his children became increasingly strained. He was largely absent during their childhoods, choosing to focus on his career rather than spending time with his family. His son Richard, in particular, struggled with mental health issues. During a time when mental illness was heavily stigmatized, Richard's struggles were largely kept hidden from the public. Tragically, Johnny refused to visit his son when he was committed to a mental health facility, a decision that highlighted the emotional distance between them. Their relationship never fully recovered, and in June 1991, Richard died in a car accident. Though Johnny paid tribute to his son on The Tonight Show, the emotional gap between them remained a haunting reminder of the personal cost of his success. The complex legacy of Johnny's mother. If there was one person in Johnny Carson's life that seemed to cast a long shadow over him, it was his mother, Ruth Carson. Johnny often spoke of Ruth as a terrible and heartless woman, and their relationship was fraught with tension. Ruth was demanding and emotionally manipulative, and her influence left lasting scars on Johnny's psyche. He referred to her as Lady Macbeth, and blamed her for many of his own shortcomings, including his inability to form deep emotional connections. The relationship between Johnny and his mother was so toxic that when she passed away, Johnny chose not to attend her funeral, stating, "The wicked witch is finally dead." This remark revealed the depth of bitterness and pain that he felt toward her, a pain that he carried throughout his life. Alcohol and anger, Johnny's struggles off-screen. The public knew Johnny Carson as the charismatic host who always had a joke ready and a smile on his face. But behind the scenes, Johnny's struggles with alcohol and his temper were well known among those close to him. He was a heavy drinker, and his reliance on alcohol often led to explosive outbursts and erratic behavior. One infamous incident occurred during his 25th anniversary celebration with NBC, held aboard the Queen Mary in 1987. Johnny's son, Rick, who also struggled with alcohol, got drunk during the party. When Johnny went to check on him, a heated argument ensued, with Johnny reportedly losing his temper and nearly coming to blows with his son. Witnesses described Johnny as the aggressor, noting how his anger boiled over in a room full of family, friends, and media figures. In 1982, Johnny's struggles with alcohol also led to a DUI arrest while driving his DeLorean under the influence. He pleaded no contest to the charges, resulting in probation and mandatory attendance at an alcohol program. It was a humiliating public moment for the king of late night, and it underscored just how deeply his addiction had taken hold. A lonely king, the isolation of fame. Despite the millions of viewers who adored him, Johnny Carson was a profoundly lonely man. He kept his private life tightly guarded, rarely giving interviews and often avoiding social interactions outside of work. While his charm seemed effortless on television, in reality, Johnny was socially awkward and introverted. He often carried a deck of cards to perform magic tricks, a way to cope with his anxiety and to bridge the gap between himself and others in social settings. Dick Cavett, a fellow TV host and friend, once remarked that Johnny was one of the most socially uncomfortable people he had ever met. It was a stark contrast to the relaxed, confident persona that America saw every night. Off-camera, Johnny struggled to connect with people, and his fame only served to deepen his sense of isolation. A complicated relationship with fellow celebrities. While Johnny Carson was admired by many, his relationships with fellow celebrities were not always smooth. One of the most notorious examples of this was his rivalry with Bob Hope. On camera, the two appeared friendly, often engaging in playful banter. However, behind the scenes, Johnny reportedly couldn't stand Bob Hope, finding his humor dated and his presence on the show a burden. Despite their public camaraderie, Johnny's disdain for Hope was well known among the show's staff. Carson's animosity wasn't limited to Bob Hope. There were several celebrities who refused to appear on The Tonight Show due to Johnny's unpredictable and sometimes cruel behavior. His sharp tongue and biting humor could easily turn into hostility, and it wasn't uncommon for guests to feel the sting of his ire when the cameras weren't rolling. The Public versus Private Johnny, a tale of two personalities. One of the most fascinating aspects of Johnny Carson was the stark difference between his public and private personas. On screen, he was charming, witty, and seemingly at ease, someone who could effortlessly engage with anyone, from Hollywood stars to ordinary people. But privately, Johnny was deeply insecure, often struggling to form real connections. His humor, which seemed so light and spontaneous, was, in fact, a carefully constructed defense mechanism, one that allowed him to keep people at a distance while still entertaining them. In a rare interview with 60 Minutes in 1977, Johnny admitted that his relationship with alcohol was a problem and that he often didn't handle it well. It was one of the few times that he publicly acknowledged his struggles, and it offered a glimpse into the vulnerability that he so often kept hidden. The real legacy of Johnny Carson. Johnny Carson was, without a doubt, one of the most influential figures in television history. His impact on late-night TV is still felt today, and his legacy as a performer is undeniable. But the side of Johnny Carson that the cameras didn't capture, the side marked by loneliness, addiction, and broken relationships, tells a more complex story. It's the story of a man who, despite his immense talent and success, was never able to find true happiness. While many remember Johnny Carson as the king of late night, it's essential to also remember the man behind the curtain, a flawed and complicated individual who struggled with fame, addiction, and his own inner demons. In the end, Johnny Carson's legacy serves as a reminder that even those we admire most are still human, with their own struggles and imperfections. And perhaps it's this very humanity that makes him all the more relatable and enduring in our collective memory. So what do you think? Do you see Johnny Carson in a different light now? Well, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy this video, please like it, press the subscribe button, and hit that bell icon to be notified of more content like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.